It is an honor to be here and to accept this award tonight. Thanks, first of all, to Michael for your very, very kind words. There were moments when I thought my efforts to earn this award came at too high of a cost. So to stand here tonight is quite surreal. To be recognized by an organization where doing the right thing is a cornerstone of the mission reinvigorates my spirit. In the words of my late friend and high school geology teacher, Steve C., my spirit soars. The honor also causes introspection. In the months since I learned of this honor, I've reflected upon the darkest moments of the campaign to denounce my service by a majority of my colleagues on the University of Texas System's Board of Regents. In my reflections, I flashed to the faces of those who stood by me, guided me, and lent me strength. And I promised I wouldn't do this, but first and foremost is my wife, Christy. I cannot adequately describe her fortitude. I appreciate her unwavering love and support. Her sacrifice so we could make a difference has been astounding. I would also like to thank my friend Tim Perkins, an attorney for many years. His tireless, unfaltering work during this lengthy saga proves the value of having an attorney that cares about you. He also cared about my family, which made a big difference. Thank you, Tim, for your friendship. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Brenda Pavich, Alex Cranberg, and my first chairman, Gene Powell. These regents stood in the minority and fought for transparency, integrity, and each board member's right, no obligation, to probe and challenge our institutions. Chairman Powell encouraged us to rely on our experiences, expertise, and plain old common sense. He pushed us to study our university's intricacies and history and to be vocal when we saw room for improvement. As the heat rose after my concerns went public, Gene Powell was in the best position to silence me, and he didn't. He paid a price for his integrity, and I appreciate all of his sacrifices. Kevin Roberts, Tom Lindsay, and the influential Texas Public Policy Foundation were front and center for the entirety of the struggle. Whether through press releases, amicus briefs, or opinion editorials, they fought for all of us. And finally, I would like to thank this organization, the American Council of Trustees and Alumni, specifically, and Neil, unbelievable, Michael Polyakoff. They brought national attention to our struggle. They brought gravitas and expertise from decades in the trenches, fighting for sound governance and the sanctity of our American universities. I've watched the organization grow and adapt under the leadership of Ann and now Michael, and can comfortably say there is not an organization in America better suited to promote, defend, and educate trustees on our mission than ACTA. You might expect me to stand here with an overwhelming feeling of vindication. You would not be wholly incorrect. During 5 years of coordinated demonization of me and my family, I did look forward to the day when the record would be corrected. But it is now clear that problems I found at my university's system are commonplace at universities nationwide. Recent media coverage of the Varsity Blues scandal is another form of vindication. At least the public now knows what many of us in this room have known all along. So while the honor means so much, it also troubles me. I wish I was standing at this podium with other trustees who resisted the pressure to conform, to be silent, to just go along because it is the way things have always been done. You see, my actions should not be considered exceptional. They were fundamental to my role. Madison said, "The advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty." The push for institutional transparency is the backbone of that guardianship, and the responsibility for it falls at the feet of every university trustee. So after tonight, I hope you will not remember me standing up here. Instead, remember the campaign to silence me. Remember the sheer number of man-hours and the financial resources that were dedicated to obstructing me. Remember the leaders, including a number of my own board members, who slandered and libeled me and my family. Remember the fury with which those in power, corrupt politicians, board members, wealthy donors, and one retired Navy admiral whom I once admired, rose to block my inquiry, to protect each other's backs, to weaponize the legislature and the media against me, instead of investigating the abuses I uncovered. Remember that one of the nation's largest public universities went to such lengths simply to prevent transparency and accountability in its admissions practices and other operations. Here is our challenge together. We know that these abuses of power persist widely throughout our universities. No one in this room believes otherwise. The problem exists in plain sight at institutions big and small, everywhere. Was anyone truly surprised in March when the Varsity Blues scandal held the nation's attention? The only jaw-dropping aspect was the recklessness by those involved, or for me, how few participants have actually been charged. Consider the celebrities involved, the amounts of money that changed hands. Consider the absurdity of the daughter of one of those celebrities who, while sunning on a yacht owned by the board chairman of her university, heard the news that her mom bought her admission into that school. Does anyone believe the chairman did not know this student had matriculated through an end run of his school's supposedly rigorous admissions practices? Has anyone thought to ask him about his role? I would sure like to talk to him about it. The dark reality of the admissions abuses taking place at our universities is that the public, and the FBI for that matter, only knows a fraction of the full story. It is important to remember that these abuses are not victimless crimes. Unqualified and undeserving candidates not only fill spots that less privileged applicants have worked really hard to earn, but their admissions impart a harmful lesson that money is the solution to everything. Rick Singer knew the financial incentives guiding our university culture. He built a cartel exploiting the shady power structures and blind eye oversight at institutions nationwide. But he went too far, made himself an outlier, and got caught. He's gone, but the problems certainly persist. For those who may read my words later and disagree with my analysis, I ask, does your board have the ability to confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt that your institution is not hiding a similar scandal? In my view, there are no elite educational institutions in America that adhere to the wise counsel of President Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. The responsibility for the ongoing admissions abuses lies at the feet of the boards. There is no other legally responsible party. We can hire accountants, development experts, architects, money managers, coaches, and university presidents, but the integrity we are expected to bring to the organization is non-transferable. It cannot be outsourced. The old proverb that says a fish rots from the head down applies here perfectly. People often ask me why I dug in and spoke up so quickly about problems after Governor Rick Perry appointed me to the University of Texas board. But I don't recall believing I had a choice. When I saw what I saw when I arrived offended my own moral code. It was never a secret in Texas that I fight to protect business and moral integrity. Every time I asked a question, it was either not passed down the chain of command, or the answers were intentionally misleading, or deemed too confidential to share even with me. This was my first test. The message from my institution was clear. Would I be compliant, or would they need to make an example of me? Well, we know how that turned out. Throughout the ordeal, I was strengthened by the motto of my high school alma mater, the St. Mark's School of Texas, which reads, courage and honor. Those simple words provided a clear rubric for the important decisions of my life. In business, the motto has guided my evaluation of individuals and companies alike. My career successes have been marked by making smart people bets, because I believe the difference between good and bad business starts and ends with the character of its people. Unfortunately, what I saw when I arrived at the UD system was a bad business. Successful businesses in America pursue efficiency. They strive to serve more customers, to optimize their products and services, and drive down the cost to compete. The University of Texas system was not doing this. And on a wider scale, modern college boards do not make these goals a priority. Our boards have created a model divorced from optimization for the students we are supposed to serve, measuring success not by the number of students they teach, but by the number of applicants they reject. Entry standards rise while side doors swing open for children of the connected and wealthy. Our universities pursue this agenda rigorously, passing it off on donors, alumni, students, and taxpayers with PR campaigns couched in the lofty language of university missions. This is the culture that has placed $1.6 trillion debt at the feet of our students. It has corrupted our higher education system to make entry into universities a privilege and graduates from these institutions elite. Our purpose as trustees should be to upend this culture. Higher education in America should not be for the elite, and it certainly should not be a system to perpetuate the nonsense that a university's value is measured by how many students it turns away. Jefferson wrote that wherever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government, and I agree. I believe the statement's inverse to be true as well. Any fiduciary or governing body that fails to live up to the responsibility of preparing young people to be as informed, intelligent, and productive needs to be disrupted for the good of the country. My experience is evidence that this responsibility falls to individuals, each one of us here tonight, who are the only pressure that will make our governing bodies correct themselves. So from board to board, the disruption falls to each of us as individuals. Boards are too productive and political to self-correct. I speak generally because the problem is, and I say this unequivocally, ubiquitous across American universities. But ubiquity does not equal permanence. The problem of weak boards can change, and it can change quickly. If you currently sit on a board of trustees or aspire to such a position, I hope that you will look inward now. Do you trust yourself to assess your university's problems honestly? Do you trust yourself to assess improper practices and bad actors based on your board's mission, regardless of relationships, reputations, or positions? Do you believe you are capable of standing in front of a room of bad actors and listing their offenses for the public record? And when they assail you for this, and they will go to unfathomable lengths to do so, do you know that you are strong enough to take it? Maybe this is unfair to ask of you in this setting. Had I been asked these questions prior to my appointment in 2011, I don't know what answers I would have given. But I can say this: having your morality tested by colleagues who are backed in their attacks by the media, politicians, and government officials has a way of showing you how much fight you have in you. In my case, I'm clearly still standing. When I saw the state of things on the UT board, it became clear that I was up against some individuals who had made the easy choice, which was to condone and ignore wrongdoing. At first, I wondered how this could possibly be the case with such impressive leaders. These were people with reputations who led some of the companies that have made our nation great. I was frustrated and disenchanted. Too many members of the board up to that point had made the decision to enjoy the benefits of their service, while the cancer from mismanagement grew without their intention to intervene. I was blessed to have a father who made clear early in my life that there is a difference between those with something to lose and those who believe they have something to lose. I've been most disappointed by those who, despite having the best foundations, the most security, and the greatest opportunities to affect real change, determine that exposing wrongdoing presents their greatest risk. Too often we mistake what I call cocktail conversation risk, the risk of being socially ostracized, for real risk. I can assure you that I did not ruin anyone in my efforts to clean up bad practices, and that was never a part of my mission. Yes, certain people lost their positions, and I scuffed a few previously good reputations. But if you look at these people after the dust settled, none of them are in the gutter. They simply are not able to continue abusing the power invested in them by the UT system and the taxpayers who fund it. There will always be a social cost for those who pursue real change. But the costs are rarely as grave as they seem, and they are never worth the sacrifice of our principles. Fear can make simple decisions seem difficult, but to avoid them is a clear path to systemic rot. In response, our first step together is for the members of this audience, as future, current, and emeritus trustees, to bring attention to the full scope of the problem. Board ethics must be a top priority for all of us who serve or will serve as university trustees. And our mission should be to elevate this issue until Congress and the President are forced to alter the accreditation rules that protect our schools from competition and restrict the flow of innovation. As fiduciaries, as leaders, as patriots, we should ensure that our boards rise to this important challenge. This fight represents a new push for greater transparency in the operation of our boards. I am proof that an individual can sustain the fight, endure the consequences, and end up on top. And here is the thing. As you get deeper into the battle, it will become clear very quickly that you have chosen the right fight. When the Texas media became more poisonous and the institutional tools used against me became more focused, something really special started to happen. People, complete strangers, began coming up to me, patting me on the shoulder, and introducing themselves, telling me they appreciated what I was doing. They told me to keep going, not to give in to the pressure. Please do not quit. These were everyday people who'd been reading the negative news stories and op-eds, but saw what I was doing objectively. Our nation's natural instinct against inequity should not be underestimated. One call sticks out. The day after my story was picked up by the Wall Street Journal, I received a voicemail from a man named Stephen Chase of Midland, Texas. Stephen was a complete stranger who thought to pick up the phone and give me a ring. I've cherished the message ever since. I just want to let you know how proud I was of you, he said. Nobody wanted to listen to you, and you stood up, and you stood in there. I've always wanted to say that to you, and I think this is a good time to do it. Thanks again, Mr. Hall, and God bless you. Interactions like this show the level to which citizens count on their leadership of their institutions to do the right thing, and they show the depth of disappointment in the failure of some of our leaders. People like Stephen Chase may lack a platform to instigate change, but to underestimate their disgust at the crony quid pro quo scaffolding of our country's power structures is a mistake. Stephen Chase and many others supported me at a time when people I had known for decades were turning away from me, some of whom also criticized me publicly. This is natural. If you take on institutional icons, your first experience will be loneliness. You will also be demonized. I expected this, but that didn't make it any easier. To hear words of support during this time was invaluable. And it is with the Stephen Chases and every other citizen we are supposed to serve in mind that I turn to each and every one of you. Americans who lack the status and connections that we enjoy are looking to you. They are mostly silent, but they are desperate for those of us in power to champion the creeds of our institutions. They are the people for whom our system of higher education was created, and the ones who are being cheated the worst. When you buck the system of incentives and privilege to raise your voice, they will let you know that you have their support. They will pat you on the back, they will shake your hand, they will give you a call. It will not only revive your spirit, it will clarify your purpose, and it will strengthen your resolve. They will come to you in support. The forces against you will seem less formidable, and the torch in your hand will be a bit lighter. These interactions are the first sparks Samuel Adams spoke of when he said, "It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." Without the support of those less fortunate than me, I would not be here tonight. I hope you believe in their power to propel you when you take up their fight. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.